Welcome into a new edition of the Sports Hub Patriots Podcast Training Camp Edition, Day 8. And we are finally sort of at the end of this long block of practices. So it's 6 practices in 6 days. We've been through 5. Tomorrow, Friday, is the in-stadium. First of all, it's at night, so I get to sleep in. Love that. And it's also a much lighter session. It's not as involved. So light at the end of the tunnel here, but we do have a ton to get to, both from this practice and kind of take a bigger picture look on where we've gotten to in these last 5 days. It's been a very eventful, very telling, very informative 5 days. And joining us to do all of that is Brian Hines. You can read his work on Pat's Pulpit. He also hosts the Patriots Beat podcast for CLNS Media with some other guy. But Brian, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We're getting to that point, right? All the days are getting jumbled together, but be good to get some sleep tomorrow morning and then head over to the in-stadium if the weather cooperates. So we're just trudging along.
So you mentioned there, right, where the days are starting to blend together. The other way they're starting to blend together, on top of the fact that we've been at Gillette hour after hour after hour, is we're kind of seeing a pattern here now in Patriots training camp. And that pattern is the offense is making plays. The offense looks good. Today, I thought maybe not as dominant as the last 2 days, a little bit of a more healthy back and forth early in practice. And we can get to why that was a little bit. But where were you at with the offense today, and where are you at with the offense big picture as we hit this kind of natural breaking point?
Yeah, today I thought it was a little more back and forth. Obviously, yesterday was their best day since we were calling it since that's Mac Jones Giants practice, right?
Yeah.
Back in 2021 when he kind of unseated Cam Newton there. But I think you're starting to see it's starting to build, right? You're starting to see the effects Bill O'Brien has on this. Mac Jones obviously looks more comfortable. He said today he's back to having fun, right? And you see that out there. He's dancing around, having a good time with Juju, Kendrick Bourne. So I think that's kind of the big thing here because it didn't start great, right? They started in the red zone, and I get it's tight quarters, it's working against the offense, but then it still just seemed kind of stale for a little bit. But then they had that breakthrough on Wednesday, and I think that was big for them because, as Max said, you're having fun if the results are there, right? And that Wednesday practice, you kind of really started seeing the results show. Few nice, really good designs down in the red zone by Bill O'Brien. They had another one today. And so, yeah, I think that you're starting to see that build and that chemistry, and they're having fun, which is a big thing because kind of non-existent last year with that whole crew.
The interesting wrinkle we saw from the offense today was early in practice, Mac Jones was working with the presumed starting offensive line, but that second group of wide receivers, Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, Trey Nixon, and then Bailey Zappi would follow with Juju Smith-Schuster and Kendrick Bourne, but the backup offensive line. A lot of people, as we talk about, is there a quarterback competition? Is there not? Kind of one of the calling cards has been, well, Mac Jones is still exclusively working with the ones. Bailey Zappi still exclusively working with the twos. Does this make that a quarterback competition? I would say as a one-off, no. If we see this regularly, I'd be more inclined to believe so, but there's a couple of things here. First off, this felt a lot like a period they ran in OTAs when Bailey Zappi worked with the starters, which Mike Reese later reported the whole purpose of that period was to let certain backups work with the starters to build chemistry. And you saw that element of it in that drill today because Mac Jones, he got intercepted by Kyle Duggar because him and Trey Nixon not on the same page. You also saw with Bailey Zappi, some of those timing patterns, concepts were just not there with guys he's not used to working with. And that's why you run a period like that. The other reason I don't think this is indicative of a true quarterback competition is Mac Jones still faced the starting defense unaltered. It's not like they juggled the defense. Mac Jones still faced the starting defense unaltered. Bailey Zappi still faced the backup defense unaltered. And to have a true quarterback competition, you need to be able to compare the guys one-to-one, and one guy versus the starters versus the other guy against the backups does not give you a true one-to-one. So an interesting period. Probably a good growing period, but I'm not ready to call it quarterback competition, like a true battle for the starting job week 1 quarterback competition just yet.
I'm with you there. I think the big thing is the defenses, as you mentioned. Max still going against that first team, Bailey still going against the second team. But we haven't seen that since the spring. So it's not a competition, it's more contingency, right? Because what if we've seen wide receivers, Tyquan Thornton still limited. We saw the run in the spring. What if there's a point in the year where Kayshon Boutte or maybe even Trey Nixon if things get really dark there, that they need to be repping with Mac Jones during the year, then you want to start building that chemistry now. Or what if there's an instance where Bailey Zappi needs to be on the field during the regular season? You want him to have some of that chemistry with Juju Smith-Schuster, with Kendrick Bourne, with those guys. So definitely not a quarterback competition. Mac is still taking all the starter reps throughout, still against the starting defense, but maybe you're just starting to see a backup plan just in case things really go south, as we pick up the regular season.
And I will say, I don't even know that we count Demario Douglas as a backup receiver anymore, frankly. One of the other big stories today, and I know there was a big story with a specific player on defense. I do want to get to that. We will get to that in a little bit, but Tyquan Thornton limited again. And I used this phrase yesterday when we had Chris Mason on. If you miss any episodes of the Sports Hub Patriots podcast, subscribe on the Patriots audio feed, Sports Hub Patriots audio feed, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, we post all the podcasts as videos now as well on the Sports Hub YouTube channel. I know a ton of you guys have been checking that out. I really like seeing that. I appreciate that. But I use the term for Tyquan Thornton, danger zone. Not to make a Kenny Loggins joke, but just because I think that coming into camp, it felt like Tyquan was going to have somewhat of a leash in terms of how much did he really need to show to win that starting job for two reasons. One, 50th overall pick. You don't want to quit on an investment like that soon. And two, they need speed. They need speed on offense. And we thought Tyquan Thornton was the only guy, that could play this year that was going to give him speed. Well, now here comes Demario Douglas, who continues to check boxes. We still got a long way to go. It's going to be very interesting to see him in joint practices. Very interesting to see him in preseason games, but continued to dominate one-on-ones today. He had a route where he put Marcus Jones on the floor, totally broke his ankles. And then there was a rare live tackling drill. They don't do that a lot, where again, guys couldn't get their hands on him. Talking about Demario Douglas. So he's fast. He's got real speed, legitimate speed. He's their second fastest wide receiver besides Thornton. If he's going to give them that option and he looks like a player, even if he's still sort of an unknown when you get to the end of camp, if Tyquan Thornton can't be that guy, outside of him being the 50th overall pick and you don't want to bail on the investment, why are you putting him out there over Demario Douglas? It's getting harder and harder to answer that question just based off Thornton's performance to start camp. And now he's not even on the field, and that's not helping his case.
He can't even get on the field. And the more he's off the field and Douglas just stacking good days on good days, we're saying he was kind of lighting it up with not pads on. And we said, let's see it with the pads come on, right? 5'8", 190, real jitterbug in the slot. Those are the types of body types and play styles that can really take over a non-padded practice. But then we put the pads on and he's still doing it. He's still getting open in one-on-ones. You mentioned the Marcus Jones play. He beat him yesterday. Nice circus catch over him. In that one-on-one tackling drill wasn't touched. They couldn't get him to the ground, let alone touch him. So you look at this receiver room, Parker, Thornton, Gesicki, Henry, parts of that room, big bodies, big possession guys. We knew there had to be a speed element in there somewhere. And we all assumed it was Thornton because he has that rank as a 50th overall pick. But if Demario Douglas is going to do this every day, it's going to be hard not to put him on the field, especially with their kind of history with that player type in the slot. Bill O'Brien obviously is going to love that. Julian Edelman was at practice today, and he said the offense kind of reminds him of 2011 and when Wes Welker was in the slot. And if you give Bill O'Brien another one of those jitterbugs in the slot, I don't know how he just pushes that to the side and says we're not going to use it, especially when you need some speed on the field with those other possession type receivers.
That's a really good point. I mean, if you want to expand on it, just Douglas as, relative to O'Brien, because I think to this point, we've thought of him as just, hey, this guy looks like he could be an NFL player. The next step is, all right, he fits on the field. How does he fit schematically in their specific offense? That's kind of, you kind of have my brain going now we need to start maybe thinking about it at a level deeper.
Yep. I mean, you saw he had that one, was it a whip? It was a whip route against one of the 7th round corners. He just left him in the dust and then he ducked right under him, showing that kind of stop-start ability. And I just, Bill O'Brien, what's his go-to? Hoss wide juke. You put him maybe in that juke route and just let him feast against whoever's lined up against him in the middle. It just seems like that type of guy he would love. So it would be interesting. Let's see him in the games. long way to go, as Bill always says, right? It's a marathon, not a
Right.
sprint here. So let's see him keep going. But everything he's done through 2 weeks here, it's hard not to be kind of blown away and start buying into this hype.
So Tyquan Thornton limited today, as I mentioned. Also limited today, Trent Brown. That offensive line still thin. Matthew Judon didn't participate in team drills today either. I want to get to the offensive line, but Brian, where are you at with Brown and Judon? And obviously they're different situations, but just like those two guys, they do seem to be healthy. And by all reports, they're healthy. This is a coaching decision, as it's been for Ramondre Stevenson, but he practiced today. Where are you at with those guys kind of just not being a part of things through the first essentially 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about it. Well, Judon's kind of a separate thing if there's something contract related there, but those are all. Well, Trent, he looked like he put in a lot of good work, and in between OTAs and training camp. Bill mentioned, he came in lighter, so I think he's in a good spot. That just looks like that load management to kind of keep him fresh, because he played 17 games last year, which is kind of a rarity for him because he's got a guy who's fought through injuries before. So if you're kind of bubble wrapping him, putting him on ice, and we'll just see a week one, I'm not that concerned. And same type of thing with Judon from that point. I mean, it's Matt Judon, right? He's a baller. I
Right.
think he's going to show up. Same type of thing with Ramondre Stevenson, who faded down the stretch. We all know that he got overworked last year. So I'm not too concerned about any of those guys. I think that's we'll see a week one and when it counts, and those guys will be probably three of your best players on the team as usual.
The other interesting element to the Brown being out is we're really getting to look at deeper at the offensive line. And look, we've done offensive line doom and gloom on this show, I think, all 7 days of camp. And we can get into it if you want, Brian. And there probably is some level to get into it. I don't know. This isn't necessarily like a doom or gloom take or a homer take. It's just kind of a what if take. So it seems pretty clear. Like Riley Reef, he's been good on one-on-ones, but he hasn't been good in team drills. And what that tells me is his footwork's not there, because one-on-ones, like he faced Josh Uche in both scenarios today. And one-on-ones, he won against Uche. In team drills, Uche just bulldozed him. And you look at that. All right, so when the guy has to run right at him, he's fine because he still has the play strength. Because in one-on-ones, you're not going around. Nobody's running around you in one-on-ones. The whole point's to hit the guy. Team drills, that's obviously a little different. It does look like Connor McDermott is getting more and more reps. And look, McDermott's been fine. And I think that's what he is. Not great, not terrible. Ideally, you have somebody better to play all 17 games, but you could certainly do a lot worse. The interesting development here, though, the last couple days, and this actually ties into the guard position because Cole Strange has been hurt. Mike Onwenu still is in practice. He's on PUP. But when Onwenu comes back, before camp, we Patriots media kind of speculated, do they move Onwenu back to tackle this year? They were very hesitant to do it last year, but they're super thin. And in that conversation, there was sort of this placeholder guard in the sense that the general thought was, well, they have more depth at guard than tackle, so they'll find someone to replace Onwenu without giving a specific name because we didn't know. Now, maybe Connor McDermott's done enough that the Patriots don't want to move Onwenu out to tackle. But if they do, I think we might have found the guy that is that, the someone at guard. And to me, that's Antonio Mafi. He's really shined since the pads came on, the 5th round pick out of UCLA. Had a really nice pancake block today. Guy started jumping up to knock down a pass, and Mafi just planted him. So that's the kind of thing you want to see. Now, are they going to move Onwenu out to tackle? I believe that gives them their best 5 offensive linemen. We still got a ways to go with Mafi, but it's good signs early. And again, I'm kind of comfortable with what Connor McDermott is. I'm comfortable. I know what kind of player he is. If Mafi continues to play well in preseason games, I'm going to look at it and say, yeah, that's their best 5. I don't think they're going to do it. I think it's going to be one of those things that they're going to be stubborn about, that they're going to refuse to do because it's their way. But we're all going to be on the outside screaming, why isn't this the look?
Yep, because that's the best 5 that they talk about a lot. Oh, it looks like right now, if Mafi can keep this up, really impressive, because they opened with Bill Murray for about the first week at that right guard. It looked like we're going to put him there, and then maybe one of these rookies can beat him out or not. And that's what happened. Mafi came in. You mentioned that kind of pancake block. He had a big win over Devon Godchow today in one-on-one. So pads come on, and he's stacking up good days. And guy they worked with at the Shrine Bowl, right? They like him a lot. He has that body type like Mike Onwenu. So if Connor McDermott, I mean, you described it perfectly. He's fine, right? Like big body,
Yeah.
can anchor against the pass. He's inconsistent in the run game at times, but maybe they look at it and say, we could get 17 fine games between Connor McDermott and Riley Reef on the right side, and we're confident in Trent Brown on the left side, and then we'll be fine, right? Or if that right tackle situation really falls down and Mafi steps up, do they bump Onwenu out? They were reluctant to do it last year. Maybe that was a Matt Patricia thing because they had him at a right tackle earlier in his career. And do they want to pay him or not? Because if they don't want to pay him in free agency this offseason, I mean, it's a tough business, but you could just say, hey, we're going to put you at right tackle. We don't care if it's going to cost another team more. We don't care if it's going to stunt your development. It's going to help this team right now the best. So that will be kind of, we'll see how that develops. Hopefully Trent comes back so we can get a little more of that right tackle battle because Riley Reef's been stuck on the left side. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at this in a month and saying their best five is with Mafia at right guard and Onwenu back out at tackle.
How much do you think that's shaping the conversation both internally and externally about the right tackle battle? Riley Reef having to play on the left side because Trent Brown's not in there, not getting to see these guys both operate in the same spot.
I wouldn't, probably not that much, right? It's pretty similar, but I mean, I'd rather see it. I'd rather see how they divvy up the reps, how they look at that spot. You mentioned, you got blown by Uche in team drills. So as much as you can get them out at that spot, I'd like to see that, even whether it's McDermott with the first team and Reef on the second team. I just want to see them getting as much reps as possible from that spot. So we'll see how they kind of evaluate things here with Clem, but that's where I'd kind of be at on that.
All right, so I pretty much hit on all the big offensive points there. I think we can move on to the defensive side of the ball. And the story on the defensive side of the ball today was Jack Jones. He had we'll call it an interesting day. That's what I called it in my notebook.
One way to say it.
We'll just go chronologically here. So first off, so what normally happens is, so there's like a report time and a practice time, and we get the schedule. Like players will start taking the field at 9. Today was players will start taking the field at 9:30. Practice begins at 9:45. And sometimes you get players that trickle out even maybe before that initial report time, but it's not like the whole team walks on the field at once. Guys kind of come out one at a time. Some guys have like pre-practice drills even before stretch they want to get into. The quarterbacks will usually throw. Sometimes like Dietrich Wise comes out to hit the sled a little bit before he stretches. It's just things like that. Some guys come out right for stretch and maybe they're doing things in the stadium. It's nothing against them, but usually once they start stretching, that's when we kind of, we're taking attendance as they come out, but that's the last call. So they start stretching. No Jack Jones. All right. A bunch of people reported Jack Jones not at practice. Jack Jones comes out halfway through the stretch, which is rare. Again, guys will come out throughout the course of that 15-minute window, but that like 9:45 practice starts. You're on the field, right? So Jack Jones comes out late for a stretch, but he's there. He stretches. All right, whatever. Kind of went in the back of the notebook. And then they were running this drill where the defensive backs put on their hands, and they've done this for years. It's a really good drill. They put on like those gloves, not the gloves, the pads that boxing trainers use.
Boxing pads, yeah.
Right. That like you can move the hands in the box of punches. And the idea is, all right, you're going to cover without the ability to grab the receiver, and it works on technique. So Jack Jones on Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne runs an out route. It was a good throw for Mac Jones, honestly. Jack Jones had it covered well, but Mac Jones put it just outside the sideline where Kendrick Bourne could get to it. Mac couldn't. I honestly couldn't tell if Kendrick Bourne like secured the ball all the way to the ground, but he made a good enough play on it. Like Jack Jones got beat on the play, close, but got beat. So Jack Jones then takes one of the pads off, throws it into the ground, and was like going off about something. I thought he was hurt. Like I thought, because sometimes you see guys get really upset when they're hurt. A guy falls. He fell right into the sideline, like they bumped into a couple players. He throws the pad. He's all upset. Jabril Peppers then walks him off the field. He goes back into Gillette Stadium. Then came back out 20 minutes later, talked to Matt Groh for a while, talked to Jalen Mills for a while, was still in uniform, but didn't take part in any drills. The first part, walking off the field by Patriots standards looked like an ejection. Looked like he got tossed from practice by Bill Belichick. But he came back out. So I don't know what to make of it. We never got an answer on it. Assistant coaches are scheduled to speak Friday morning, so maybe Mike Pellegrino, somebody asked him. I doubt we'll get a full answer on it, but maybe we get something. And even for any guy, that's weird. But for Jack Jones, given everything else he's going through, and they've already kind of limited him in practice, we think because they're not positive about his availability going forward because of his legal issues. There's also a guy who was suspended by the team at the end of last year. Something like this, whatever it was, even though we don't know what it was, it's still notable.
Yeah, you don't know what happened because if he got kicked out, there's no way he would have just came back out like that. And I agree, it looked like an injury at first. That's the reaction you have when you get hurt, but I didn't see him talk to any trainers. And then the
Right.
way Peppers kind of walked him off the field, that doesn't look like an injury there. So just a weird situation. And for a guy who obviously has the history and he has a court date here in about 2 weeks, you figured you'd want to kind of lay low and not make a scene, and he made a scene today. And I mean, they kind of need him out there. The boundary cornerback depth is thin behind him. He looks like he's going to have a big role if he's out there. With, opposite Christian Gonzalez, John Jones is still in that mix, and we saw a guy take his place today, and Isaiah Bolden, who had a good day. But just a weird day from Jack Jones. We'll talk to Pellegrino tomorrow, who had a conversation with him on the sideline before he departed. Doubt we'll get anything real there, but yeah, just kind of a weird situation and something to monitor still here with another thing with Jack Jones as we move forward.
So the question we kind of had at the beginning of camp was, all right, the Patriots are Jack Jones is with the twos. Doesn't seem like it's a talent demotion, maybe preparing for life without him. How prepared should the Patriots be for life without Jack Jones? And do you think this is something that maybe, all right, we get more of these looks now, and we'll get to who's filled in a second, but do we get more of these looks now where Jack Jones isn't repping with the top defense?
I wouldn't be surprised. I think you've kind of seen maybe he's probably not the most reliable guy in the world, right? And that's walking out of practice, legal issues. Can they rely on him? I don't think you really can week in, week out. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing more him just on that second unit to keep cycling through looks about what they would do with life without Jack Jones.
So with Jack Jones out, and this happens, this is just reality in the NFL. Player goes out, whether it's suspension, injury, whatever, hold out. Somebody else is going to get a chance to step up. And Isaiah Bolden's a name we've kind of been talking about more and more. 7th round pick, cornerback, Jackson State, big guy, 6'3", elite athlete. Deion Sanders super high on this kid. He was like vocally upset after the draft with how late Isaiah Bolden went. So Isaiah Bolden had started to rep with the twos a little bit, and then today he got the big chance. Jack Jones is out. There was a live 2-minute period late in practice, like live 2-minute drill. They had the clock going and everything. They were calling timeouts. They had the down markers. Not only is Isaiah Bolden out there for that opposite Christian Gonzalez, he's one-on-one on Devontae Parker and had a really nice pass breakup. And sometimes when we say pass breakups, it's, sort of an errant throw, cornerback flails out, gets their arm on it. No, this was high point ball. Devontae Parker went up, got 2 hands on it. Isaiah Bolden punched it out. So really encouraging sign for the rookie. This is a team that needs depth on the boundary at corner because after Gonzalez and John Jones, you're talking about Marcus Jones, who's 5'8" and has had a rough camp. And then you go down to Sean Wade, Quandre Mosley, Amir Speed's another rookie. But having somebody emerge from that group would be big, especially if you can't count on Jack Jones because that 4th corner becomes your 3rd, and the Patriots like to rotate. And it looks like Isaiah Bolden may be that guy. Are you buying the Isaiah Bolden hype yet, Brian?
I don't know about buying, maybe walking the line there, but he seems like, I think we were talking at the end of spring even, he seemed like a guy who was maybe starting to climb that depth chart. Mentioned great combination of size and athleticism, which would be really intriguing if he could become a player on the outside there. You saw it on that pass breakup on Devontae Parker. So if he could become something, that would be big because you've kind of seen them throw Marcus Jones along the boundary at times out of necessity. And we saw that last year, right? Like he had some good moments against Devontae Adams, but he's 5'8", and guys like T. Higgins can go up over him. And even in another 7th round pick, Amir Speed started to get some work at safety today. So maybe that could free up one of those versatile secondary pieces to help more at cornerback. But yeah, Bolden's been impressive so far, and maybe Speed's starting to turn a corner here too. We'll see how that kind of develops. But if one of those late round guys, Speed too, really good athlete, good size. If one of them could become something here, it looks like Bolden's that guy. That would be a really big addition to that boundary cornerback spot.
Other headlines on defense today. Kyle Duggar had, I thought it was a pretty nice interception. It was during that period where Mac Jones was working with the second wide receivers and him and Trey Nixon just not on the same page. Duggar recognized it, made the read, stepped in front, picked the ball off. They got to get him paid, man, because he's getting more expensive every day. And then Adrian Phillips was more in the red zone. Bailey Zappi tried to hit Demario Douglas on an in route in the end zone and just led him right into Adrian Phillips. Zappi just didn't see Phillips there, hit him right between the numbers. So that, not take anything away from Adrian Phillips, but a little hand delivered. Anything else stand out for you on defense today?
Christian Gonzalez, he had, I don't want to call it a rough day yesterday, but he gave us some catches and looking how he bounced back. But the big thing to me was so many people, why'd he fall to 17, right? This was a guy, I thought he was a top 10 pick. I think you were kind of in that same boat there. A lot of people pointed physicality, right? Is he a physical player? Is he willing to tackle? Patriots thought he was a willing tackle, and he showed that today. He fired downhill on Riley Webb, I believe it was one play, kind of lit him up anyway, and big applause from the defense on the sideline. And he would have had another one on a little short motion to Juju. He would have lit him up too if it was like full contact. But good to kind of see that physicality from Gonzalez. And I thought he bounced back pretty well today after giving up some catches yesterday.
Yeah, he's had some of those welcome to the NFL moments where I think he's done as much as he can. And it's like you can't knock anything he did on the play. It's just better. Like the play of the day today, they're in red zone, first team offense, first team defense. This is when Mac Jones reunited with his receivers. Kendrick Bourne runs a deep out to the back corner of the end zone, had like a quarter of a step on Gonzalez. Mac Jones puts it where only Bourne can get it. Bourne goes out, grabs the ball, toe taps, touchdown. Rookie moment. Welcome to the NFL. You just learn from it. I think Gonzalez talked about after practice today that he's been able to do that. He's been able to learn from it and build on it. All right. I previously was known as the special teams guy on the beat. We had Andrew Callahan on a couple days ago. He wouldn't let me ask him a question about punters. He wouldn't let me ask him a question about punters. He wanted to ask me, but Brian, you're coming for the crown because you were all in on these specialists. And it was a big day. 2 team punt periods, a ton of field goals. What'd you see from the specialists today?
They were awesome. That rookie duo handled most of the work. Corliss Waitman mixed in a little during some team punting drills, but most of the day it was the rookies, and they continue to impress. Chad Ryland, I was watching him today because he wasn't happy how he ended his session Tuesday. It looked like he just squeaked one in the upright, and then his next one, he left the toe open a little bit. Maybe he overcorrected and he sailed it wide left. So looking how he rebounded, and he was awesome. I had him 9 for 9, right max distance in that 45-yard range. Even in the 2-minute drill, right? They were doing that 2-minute where they put 15 seconds or so on the clock and they run a play, and then they have to run that field goal unit out. He was 3 for 3 in that, and the fact that he was the guy doing that showed probably where they're at in that kicker battle too. So his leg's been awesome, plenty of range, which was kind of the concern with Folk. We saw the other day he was short from about 45. So Ryland looks excellent. He looks really good, and Behringer does too. He's holding the whole time for Ryland, and his punts, they're booming. We're sitting there going ooh and ah over his punts. You see why he kind of left the Big Ten as the all-time yards per attempt leader. Big leg on both of those guys. I've been very impressed, and unless things completely go off the tracks during the preseason games, I would be surprised if they're not the duo there on the week 1 roster.
All right, Brian, before we wrap it up here, so this is the point where I usually ask, what are you looking for next day, next few days? But tomorrow's the in-stadium. We're looking for special teams. That's all that practice is, and then a couple days off. So let me change this question up a little bit. First few days of camp, right? We had those 3 days. We had the day off. Where are you at? Just big picture. What is your view of this team now versus what it was going into this stretch? How has your opinion changed, or has it changed?
I don't think it's changed that much, honestly. I think coming in, you expected them to have a really good defense, right? Obviously, they have a ton of talent, and then you add Christian Gonzalez, Keon White, who's been impressive, Marte Mapu, who's playing all over the place. You knew that unit was going to be good, and then offensively, I thought they would kind of get back to where they were in 2021 with Josh McDaniels, now that Bill O'Brien's in. I think you're seeing that, right? An efficient passing attack, They're not bombs away, or they probably won't be averaging like 35 points, but they're an efficient attack that can work. And you saw that work Wednesday, some really good design. So I'm kind of right where I'm at, which is, I think it's a good thing that I'm right where I'm at, because I had some high standards for them entering camp. But through 2 weeks here, I wouldn't say my opinion has changed that much on where I thought they were entering.
So I'm surprised you say that, because like I'm included. So the offense was stuttering, leaving on Saturday, right? They had that, or leaving on Friday, that first big day Sunday. That was Bailey Zappi's big practice. But so you're kind of thinking this is where you had the offense at
Well,
this
so
point.
I guess entering camp, I think I said this is where they're going to be at some point. Now, after that first week, I was a little worried, but then
Okay.
they kind of flipped the switch there. Like things were going stale a little bit, it looked like, but then they kind of flipped the switch back to where maybe entering camp, I expected them to be at this point, looking better and operating better.
So you think they got behind schedule and then got back on track, basically?
Yeah, maybe you could say that, or it still was like that red zone period, basic install stuff. But I think they're at a good spot right now after a couple good days, and you're starting to see that O'Brien offense develop more. They're having fun. Max smiling, which is a big thing. So I think they're at a pretty good point right now.
He is Brian Hines from Pat's Pulpit at I am Brian Hines on Twitter. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I will be back with another Sports Hub Training Camp podcast at some point. We are TBD if we're going to do one after the in-stadium practice on Friday, but be sure to subscribe to the Patriots audio feed, wherever you get your podcast, Sports Hub Patriots audio feed, and the Sports Hub YouTube channel. If we don't do one Friday, we'll do one again on Sunday when the Patriots hold their next practice. So until that one, or whichever podcast, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for listening. For more work, 985thesportshub.com, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.